I'm an English teacher, and because I liked English, I became an English teacher. So I have a question. What is the best way to select and train teachers? What makes good teachers?
Oh, I'm sorry to say liking English is not the first qualification. Maybe the first qualification is to enjoy helping students, to have enthusiasm for helping them whatever level they are and whatever they need. That's a very important requirement. But in Japan, also, a teacher has to have a lot of energy, a lot of ability to work very hard, many hours, long hours, and not get sick. Well, it's extraordinarily difficult to work in Japan as a teacher of English. It's not an easy job at all.
Especially English teacher is hard.
Yes.
In Japan.
There's a lot of pressure on English teachers. And the system is not working well. The system does not serve students well. The system has them reading textbooks that are stupid and taking tests that are not relevant to their goals, most of them. And the Ministry of Education thinks the problem is the teachers, as near as I can gather. If students in Japan are not learning English well, whose fault is that? Well, it's the ministry's fault. It's not the teacher's fault. And yet they think it's the teacher's fault, and they try to keep fixing teachers.
We're relieved to hear that.
That's not where the problem is. The problem is in the whole design of the system.
So, in a recent, well, I wouldn't say recent, but in the Japan Times article, they mentioned that teachers who are going to be asked to teach English, in English, and they're upset by this.
Yes.
And one of the reasons given is that they don't like teaching English.
Right.
and yet they are, that's their job. They have to do it. So how can we overcome that kind of sentiment? Is there anything we can do as professionals to change their minds?
Well, there is, but it's very difficult. I think that article it surveyed English teachers now
yes.
and asked, do you use English language to teach English? And 20% said yes. 80% said no, or once in a while, something like that. And the question is how to turn that around. It would require changing attitudes. Because the reason why the teachers don't want to teach in English is they have an idea that you have to be perfect. You shouldn't make mistakes. And that's a national illness in Japan, to feel that you shouldn't make mistakes with English. And it makes many students reluctant to speak. And it makes teachers reluctant to speak. And one of the worst effects is it makes teachers shy to speak in front of students, because the students are critical. You hear students saying, "Oh, I do not respect my teacher because she doesn't have a good accent."
Yes. And I often hear that. Yes.
That attitude is a killer. And so if we are to encourage teachers to teach in English, we're going to have to work on the attitude that they have to be perfect. Tell them, you don't have to be perfect. Of course not. If you're going to teach in English, you and the students together are going to be exploring, making mistakes, having fun, and mistakes are often funny. And if everybody can laugh at them, then they're educational, they're beneficial. Really, it's so much fun to try, and everybody knows they're trying, and just enjoying the whole process of working at this difficult task. But that vision is quite a different imagination from the reality of English teachers' anxiety about their English. So I think it's almost impossible to imagine that they will teach in English. So yeah. I predict that they just won't, and the idea of teaching in English will suffer the same fate of the idea of teaching communicative English. It just won't get done, and the ministry will not have any punishment for teachers who don't do it, and that'll be the end of it. So come back in 3 or 4 years and ask, are they doing what the ministry said? The answer will be no, actually we don't talk about that much anymore.
So my next question then is, if we're going to place blame on the situation, do we start at the top from the ministry itself for not allowing teachers to be creative or innovative in the classroom? Or do we spread the net of blame out to the society itself, which fosters this kind of adversity to something new and like language, like a foreign language, for example?
I think it is the society itself, and by now it's a whole set of cultural assumptions, and for that matter, economic assumptions, industries of textbooks and eikaiwa and the industries around teaching English in Japan are living off the current situation. There was a mistake. One mistake may have been the biggest mistake in English education in Japan. In the Meiji era, Tokyo University was set up, and originally it was set up as a foreign language university because there weren't enough professors who could teach in Japanese at that level. And they wanted an international quality, high-level university. So the language of instruction was English. And the entrance exams were serious English entrance exams that determined whether the students were able to study in English. Very healthy situation. And some of the students who went to Todai at that time were really remarkable, and their level of English, their command of English was equal to the best European speakers of English. But after a few years, still in the Meiji period, in Japan there was a reaction against Western influence. And by that time, there were just enough professors who could teach in Japanese that the language of instruction at Todai was changed to Japanese. That's fine, too. But they forgot one thing. They forgot to stop giving entrance tests in English. So from that moment on, entrance tests in English began to drift apart from the real purposes of teaching until all over Japan, with Todai leading as an example, the style of English tests is formal and completely removed from the actual use of the English for academic purposes or for any other purpose. That was a horrible parting of ways between.
So that might be the single
testing.
The single cause.
Yes. So
we want to pinpoint.
So here we are blaming universities for giving ridiculous English tests, And the high schools, of course, blame the universities. The junior high schools blame the high school for giving ridiculous English tests. And the system is based on an English, a version of intellectual knowledge that is loosely related to English, but now has nothing to do with the language as it is used by human beings. And that means that the fault in the whole system is, you can't blame anybody. You can't blame Mombuka Gakusho. You can't blame the universities. Everybody just assumes that this is how things go. In one high school I worked in, they used to have communicative English classes, and then two of the teachers told me that this was their last year, they were going to be fired. And I said, is the number of students getting so much smaller? No, the number of students is the same as ever, but they have decided that university entrance exams are the most important thing, and communicative English is just a waste of time. We must teach these students the entrance exam English, which is a completely different thing. And that criterion is of teaching stupid entrance exam English is all up and down the system. Now, I call it stupid because it's possible to regard English as an experience that people have in talking with each other, in understanding each other, in exchanging meaning and emotion, ideas of beauty, comedy and tragedy. It should be a language for human hearts. But what is studied and what is tested now is not that language itself, not from the feeling point of view of what is it like to participate in the language. It is from outside the language, looking at it as an object, as a foreign object, to be memorized, to be intellectualized, to be attacked purely unemotionally as a memorizable set of facts. That's the horrible situation that we're in.
And yet, since the Meiji era, foreign scholars have been invited to introduce a new method.
Yeah,
and let's improve the situation. But it goes right back to what it was.
It goes right back because
who were the famous names? Palmer and who was the other ones?
Charles Fries and Harold Palmer.
Audiolingual and all this commutative approaches.
Now the awareness of what it would take to be effective in teaching English has never been absent from Japan, but the ability to implement it has always been weakened by the demands of the system. Now, maybe one of the strongest demands is that of parents. Any parent wants to give his child a small portion of 1% of competitive advantage over other children, which means going to Juku and doing studying for tests and preparing for exams.
Home stays abroad.
And so it's parents themselves are one of the most conservative forces that preserve the old ways. Because what parents realize is that English has somehow got tangled up with the life chances of their children.